trade unions in this country can argue about their relative weight, none to rival with a union confederation that boasts 12 million active and retired members. The AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka joins us. He's in Paris for OECD Week, the forum that brings together players and policymakers with this year's topic. Hold on, let me get it out here, because it's a bit of a mouthful. Strengthen productivity and promote inclusive and sustainable growth. Richard Trumka, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Should I be apologizing about the weather or the strikes?
Well, I came from Washington, D.C., and we had 25 straight days of rain, so the weather is nothing new.
I know, look, I know you're not going to comment on French industrial action, but you've got unions protesting a left-wing government. They're divided over a labor reform bill, labor reform also triggering protests in Belgium. What does that say to you?
That there's a lot of unrest, a lot of anger, and a lot of frustration among working people. The rules of the economy have been set against us for the last 30 or 40 years, and people are just tired of it. That's what's giving rise to the political turmoil in the United States, a guy that, like Donald Trump, who can rise up despite his many shortcomings.
And when you see the level of mobilization in Europe, when you think of in the U.S., do you look at it and say, oh, the Europeans have it wrong, the French have it wrong? Or do you think to yourself, I wish we had the ability to get the government to the bargaining table in this way?
Well, you know, look, I was president of Mine Workers, and I mobilized an entire state, the citizens in a state, to protect health care for my members. So I'm a big fan of mobilization. I think citizens have a right and an obligation to get into the street, to make their positions known, and to petition their government to change policies that are bad for working people.
All right, you mentioned Donald Trump, labor relations, trade, protectionism at the heart of the U.S. presidential election, and an ad campaign that the AFL-CIO put out leaves no doubt as to who you won't be voting for. Let's take a look.
My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. Wages too high.
And by the way, I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
With a spot like that one, are you perhaps offending some of your own members?
No, we're educating our own members. That's what we found out. Look, when you look at Donald Trump, you have to say three things. One, he's unfit to be president. Two, he would make it harder for working people to make ends meet. And three, he would tear our country apart. As a result of that, we're going out educating our members, and we give them the facts about him. And you get past the bluster and all of his one-liners, they start to say, he's not good for America.
But blue-collar workers have been saying, hey, he's expressing better than any of the other politicians our frustration.
They are angry and frustrated because 30, 40 years of stagnant wages, losing benefits, losing health care, having pensions going down, and have the rules of the economy rigged against them. They believe that no one's listening. They thought he's the best shot of people listening to them because he's outside of the system. Bernie Sanders has also tapped into that same anger and frustration from a different angle. And he's focused on young people that have become very active and mobilized in this election. But when you give them the facts, when you give our members the facts, when you give blue-collar workers the facts, they start to come back across the bridge and say, all the negatives of Donald Trump don't add up to the few things that he says that are right.
I noticed that you're neutral when it comes to the Democratic race at this point. You're not endorsing either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Your union members, though, are they upset that under Bill Clinton, they voted the North American Free Trade Agreement, that she in the past was for the Trans-Pacific deal and now is changing her mind a little bit?
Well, our process is that in order for me to endorse either candidate, 70% of our members have to agree that that candidate's the one to get endorsed. So we have unions that are supporting Bernie Sanders. We have unions that are supporting Hillary Clinton. More, quite frankly, are supporting Hillary Clinton.
Why is that?
By the way, well, she's against the TPP. She's against bad trade deals. She's for working people. She's for a quality education.
But so is Bernie Sanders. He's against those trade deals.
And that's why we stayed neutral, because both of those candidates are excellent candidates. that have a bold and comprehensive plan to raise American wages.
Are we headed towards a more protectionist world?
I don't think so. What we're headed towards are trade deals that actually are good for people on both sides of the border. We're not against trade. We're against bad trade deals. And we changed the debate in this last trade deal with the TPP. We showed people why it was bad, why it wouldn't meet the needs of working people, why it wasn't really a trade deal so much as it was an investment deal, why it would hurt workers on both sides of the border. And so we were able to slow it down, defeat it, and I think if it would come up for a vote right now, we have the votes to stop it and then renegotiate it.
When Barack Obama recently visited Europe, it became clear that public opinion throughout the continent, not just here in France, even in places like Germany, was now squarely against the TTIP, that free trade deal between the U.S. and the European Union. Is that deal dead in the water now?
Well, if they continue down the path that they currently are, then the answer is yes. Look,
so what's a good deal then in terms between the U.S. and the EU?
With TTIP, it wasn't so much about tariffs, because the tariffs between our two countries are already very, very low. It was about harmonizing regulation and social safety nets. And our idea was that they should be harmonized up to the highest standard. What they've been doing so far is harmonizing them down to the lowest standard, so people on both sides of the border or the ocean lose in the process. People aren't dumb. They realize what is good for them, and they see bad trade agreements. They see that this was going in the wrong direction, so they lost support for it. In addition to that, Francois, it created a special court for investors that no one else has access to. And people said, why? Our system, our court system in the U.S., the court system in Europe are highly refined. They're good enough for us.
But European small businesses said we don't have the money to mount a challenge in American courts. That's why this court of arbitration was put together.
Court would be more expensive than having an American lawyer try a case for you. That court's a very expensive court as well. Of course, we don't know how it operates or who the judges are or what it would be. That's part of the problem. The lack of transparency makes it unappealable.
So now we have the U.S. election cycle coming up. There's going to be elections here in France. There's elections in Germany, which are bring us to September of 2017. The fact that all this is being put on hold, does it matter?
Oh, you mean trade? Well, I think it does matter, because it's going to have a big impact in the elections. Look, all the presidential candidates running in the United States are against TPP, all of them. So it would be a bad deal. It would kill the deal. What it'll do is allow us to restart. It'll force politicians to look at the general population and say, why do they oppose these trade deals? If trade is so good, why do 70% of Americans oppose the trade deals? It's because the trade deals that were written weren't written in such a way to protect workers and people on both sides of the border so much as investors and corporations.
Richard Trumka, president of the AFL-CIO, many thanks for being with us.
It's a great honor to have, and I hope I get to come on again, Francois. Thanks for having me.
All right.